allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A motion for the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Second? All in favor? Yep. The next select board meeting will be Thursday, December 14th at 5:30 at the town hall. And open the workshop. Christine, could you explain to us what's happened overnight?
Yes, I received a message from Bob Gingrich last night. He is the head of Parker Appraisal. I sent him the questions that people had turned in, which is about 10 individuals who submitted questions. And he reviewed them. And his thought was that since a lot of the questions seem to be pertaining to individuals' abatements that have already been submitted, that it would be inappropriate to have him here to discuss those particular questions. His thinking is that if it rises to the level of Board of Assessment review, it wouldn't be appropriate at this stage to address the questions in this format. So he said he will review the questions that were submitted and he will provide them to the board at a later date because there are several questions that are pretty detailed that he wants to give us some time to. So Parker Appraisal will not be here today.
So how does it address the questions that we have here sitting at this table?
Yeah.
Well, I think it muddied the water when you open it up to outside questions that are definitely related to abatements that were already submitted. So
So you don't answer those questions. We said no properties were going to be, no individual properties were going to be addressed, but there are questions on grading and waterfront and good and fair values.
That's true, but you invited questions and those questions were provided to Parker Appraisal so that they could see them ahead of time.
But we don't have to
That's not
address.
even fair. Give us
I feel that Parker Appraisal is not doing their just duty to this town. I have questions sitting in this spot here that are generic in nature about gradient and values and waterfront and views and amenities and things that are generic, not tied to any particular property, that they owe us a response. Additionally, I've asked for the values that have been assigned to parts of properties. This is probably my 6th public on-the-record request that I've yet to see that document from them, which is part of their contract to us as a town. Where is it?
Which document are you referring to? The manual?
No, I shared this with you at the last meeting. They have a document that shows how they valued each gradient of a property.
Yeah, you're talking about a manual.
But we have the red book, which is not the data that we have. There's a whole other set of information that I'd like to have.
I'm not going to get into this conflict again. We have been over this issue at several meetings. I will leave it to the board members to decide how you want to move forward. I have recommended against this particular process from the very beginning, understanding that it will not work. We need to work with the contractor. This is affecting daily operations at this point. We are unable to focus on other important items that deserve our attention because we keep going over and over and over a process.
So let's say we deny all these abatements today, and then they go.
We're not discussing abatements today.
Let me finish my statement, please. Let's say if we denied all of these today, and they went for review, I don't believe those individuals have the tools to make the necessary recommendations on those, because they don't have the same information that I'm looking for, has not been granted to any one of us to use for our proper due diligence.
we don't have to turn them all down, we don't have to approve them all at the same time. We take them at face value of the information that we have, which is all that anybody can do at any given time with the information that we have.
The problem with that, Madeline, is that I don't have the information I would like to have to do proper due diligence to respond to any of the requested abatements. And I'm not sure why Parker Appraisal refuses to give that to us or come to a meeting and address generic questions.
Generic questions are not what they were provided with.
I didn't
He
provide
made
any
his
questions.
determination at a court date last night, based on the questions that were provided to him for review. That is reasonable.
And there are plenty of questions in here that were generic of nature.
Some,
Plenty.
not all.
All the same, at this point, what is the alternative? We're slowing down the process, we're preventing people from getting abatements that are clearly due them. I don't see any value in prolonging the process.
And you don't need to deny all of the abatements. You hired a contractor to perform a specific duty. They are providing recommendations for approval or denial of an abatement as they see fit. It's appropriate for this Board of Assessors to take their recommendation, and if the taxpayer is not happy with the results, they appeal to the Board of Assessment Review. It's a very clean process, and it's laid out in statute for a reason. It creates a fair and equitable point for all of West Bath taxpayers to be heard and, treated in the same manner.
It's appropriate
It's
for
very
any
simple.
person to ask a question for clarification as well. And I have several. And I expect a response from Parker Appraisal, to be frankly honest.
They're not saying that they won't respond. If you really want responses from them for particular questions, then I would suggest the board put them in writing, and they will respond to the board. He's very emphatic about his willingness to respond to the board.
Do you feel that the review process has sufficient data to process their analysis
Yes,
on any of these?
Yes, it
They have no
happens-
more data than we
It
have.
happens in many other communities in the state of Maine. It's a very common practice. And it's really just a handful of people who are against the process as it's laid out. Even people who submitted questions, 3 of them stated it directly, that they do not understand why we're bothering with the meeting with Parker Appraisal. They just want their abatement process. So we are not serving the best interest of all of our taxpayers when we're prolonging the process.
Requesting you to blindly review these applications without the data that I think necessary is also inappropriate. That's my position on it anyway.
We have, in most cases, we have as much information as we have had when Ron came to us with abatement requests.
We have an abatement that has put property into farmland, which is completely legal, and I understand that process. However, if it has 20 acres on waterfront, they have not lost their view or access to said waterfront for their personal enjoyment. There is no place in here to collect a revenue for, which we heard on our call on the assessors as an amenity, that is considered amenity to the property. There's no fee associated with that. I disagree with that, which is part of what my abatement
I
request is.
don't understand what you're talking about.
I understand it. It's an amenity. A view of water is an amenity. And there is no gradient attached to title, view, and deep water. And there was a question in here that someone said they had an obstruction of a view, yet had the same waterfront fee as someone else, which I also disagree with. So I have questions for Parker to discuss how they have valued waterfront generically, unobstructed versus obstructed, deep water versus tidal. And that's not anywhere here. And how am I supposed to talk about waterfront abatements without the proper tools?
Well, as Madeline just said, we were never able to discuss the abatements that Ron submitted either.
But Ron came, this is where Ron came and explained why he made the decision he made, and I think that's where I'm confused.
Ron did not conduct a revaluation though. This is a different process.
I understand that, but if Ron wanted an abatement, he'd tell us why. I think if someone has a question about their property, he should at least be able to come to us and tell us why he made the decision he did.
When we get past, in simple terms, these revaluation values, and we get into next year, and people are applying for abatement, we will be able to have more of a similar process to what Ron did.
So you're saying that we're gonna have a live body like Ron here in an office to discuss, because that's what I thought we were gonna have to begin with.
No, and I'm not going back to that, Suzanne, because I had never talked about having someone employed in this office or here at the office to answer questions. I never talked about that.
Two of these people sitting at this table felt it.
So the process would be when somebody thinks they're entitled to an abatement, how would that process work?
For these revaluation values or in the future? In the future, if somebody feels they're entitled to abatement for whatever reason, it could be a missing homestead or, something that's not right with how their property was valued, they would submit an abatement request. We would send it to Parker Appraisal. They would review it and tell us why they are either recommending approval or denial.
So it would be the same process as we're on it?
It would be the same process, but conducting or processing abatement requests during a revaluation is different than when we're processing them in other years. It just is. Parker Appraisal is still obligated to defend their methodologies and their values at this point.
But a homestead exemption there's no gray area in it. Either you qualify or you don't. And that's something that doesn't require a significant amount of process. But when we look in here, and I look at on page 26 of the MMA manual for assessing, and it talks about enforceable restrictions, physical depreciation, functional obsolescence, none of this has been brought and given values for us to determine anything path forward. And this is in the main manual, not
Because
up here.
you're not determining it, the contractor is determining it, and you hired him to do so.
But when people have a question about it, we can't address it. Because we haven't been given the values, which is what I've been asking for all along. What is the value of new, good, fair? What is the depreciation? What are all those elements in there that these people have the right to understand? Everyone in this room should be able to tabulate their own tax basis based upon a formula and the information that we give them. And we have not done that.
Well, I don't want to repeat myself, so I'll leave it at that.
You are the assessors. You are the assessors, not Parker Appraisal. When did the Board of Assessors meet and hire Parker Appraisal as their consultant? Because it is your job as the Board of Assessors to keep your authority, not as the Board of Selectmen, but as the Board of Selectmen.
We did not meet to hire him.
We are not entertaining public comment today. So this is still a workshop.
No, you did not entertain comments to Parker Appraisal.
The question,
Well, I'm gonna take my hour drive back. This meeting is useless.
the question is, how do we proceed?
Right.
I would be grateful if you would allow administration, meaning all of the staff at Town Hall, to move forward in the process. We will bring abatement requests to you that were reviewed by Parker Appraisal. You can do
Excuse
what you
me,
want with them.
excuse me, thank you.
You can act on them as you wish, and we can move forward in the process.
But we're not able to act on
We
it as
are
we
not-
wish. That's
we
the
are not
problem.
It's my belief that we are not acting in the best interest of our taxpayers if we stall the process. There's this idea that Parker Appraisal is stalling the process. They are not, we are.
They are, they're not here. They have stalled the process today.
Yeah.
Why aren't they here today?
He has, and I explained his reasons for not wanting to be here, because if it gets to the level of Board of Assessment review, he doesn't want to have had these initial conversations about, you know, people's abatement requests.
Christine, your request is asking the three of us to blindly accept whatever Parker Appraisal has put before us and move forward, and I am not comfortable doing that, because I don't agree with some of what they put forward in these abatements. So what is the proper procedure then?
Exactly.
The proper procedure,
I'm asking Christine.
I already explained what I thought the proper procedure was. I'm not going to repeat myself, and I'm not going to participate in any more conflict.
so, you can either make a decision to, give the staff the authorization to continue,
With what?
with the process as outlined, and we can come back and have the votes on the abatements that have been presented to us already at the next meeting.
So I'm just gonna try to summarize. If we go ahead with this process, we will approve the ones we feel comfortable in approving. We will deny the ones we don't feel comfortable with, and they will go, have the right to appeal.
Right.
But we as the assessors also have the right to adjust them as we see them here and process that. And that's what we're giving away all of that authority to someone else. And I don't think that is our process.
But if we don't do the process, we'll
We don't have the tools to complete the process, and for whatever reason, there seems to be a hurdle not allowing us to do it. And I can't understand why, to be frankly honest. I'm not against moving these forward, but I don't believe, if we send these all off that are denied and then our constituents choose to appeal them, I don't believe the tools are available to do it the next step properly.
It happens in every other community in the state, Suzanne.
Well, maybe not, I don't think you want me to comment on that, Christine.
I honestly think that we're in a no-win situation. If we don't do this, then everybody here can come dry.
Yeah.
Please, one conversation, thank you.
I don't know how to go forward unless we follow this recommendation, because everybody's gonna be in limbo.
Yeah, we won't be able to move forward. Parker's not gonna review anything else until he understands what this board,
Had he come to the meeting, he would have understood what the board needed.
So, I guess I would recommend that we move forward, but I would like, I think we should present our questions to him first. I think the board should give the questions we have to him first, because I think it may help us with some of those. I think he needs to answer our questions.
I do,
and
I
he will.
agree.
He will.
And when can we see the manual with the
There is no manual, Suzanne. The
There-
manual is what I gave you. They use what is in Trio.
No, well, Christine actually said there was a level of,
No, I didn't say there's another manual. I said, I created the one that was, they told me to print out of Trio.
and
That
that's,
is what they use.
no, there is a whole nother level to that, Christine. There is. There is.
So, it is the opinion of two of us at the table that we should allow things to go forward and that we submit our own questions to Parker Appraisal concerning the,
Generic questions, because if we put specific, it's not gonna answer them. So
Mine are generic in nature. I understand that process.
it's really generic, because I do have individual questions too, but I know if I put them out there, he's not gonna answer them, so. Right.
Shouldn't he answer for you guys though?
I believe so. I mean,
Isn't that what you said? That
Yes,
answer
just
to
not
them,
about
not to
specific,
us.
not about specific properties. They have to be
He-
generic.
But to them, you could answer
Well, I
specific.
think
just
Abby's
chose-
referring to a specific property when she made that comment.
Yeah.
But I mean, you guys could.
I can ask, I have
Yes,
questions.
he will answer questions from the board.
For specific
If I
properties.
say
No.
Mr. Joe, no.
Not from the board? From the Board of Assessors, you won't answer questions for specific properties?
No, not during this.
Not during a public comment, but privately with them.
No, he
right?
can't answer privately. Everything is public.
During this revaluation process, which we are still in, he is not going to answer questions about specific parcels until he gets to the Board of Assessment review.
So he won't answer to us.
So even the
You
assessors.
know, I have a
Not
question.
during this process, future years he will. This
He's
process he is not
here
going
if you-
to.
Wow.
No, that's for 150,000 too.
okay, so,
So my only concern is, do we ask our questions first, then meet to do the.
I think we should. I think we should, I have questions
Get our questions.
before I can move forward, I cannot, I am not comfortable processing anything that's been presented without the questions. I have in
People
my head.
have accepted extensions of their abatements, so, for you to act on them. So if you did not address the abatements until January, you'd be okay.
So could we get all our questions in by a certain date and have answers before the 14th?
Possibly, I don't know.
could we ask that of him? So that, if possible, we could handle those first 5.
Mhm.
So what's the deadline for us getting our questions in?
I need till Monday at the earliest. I leave Friday for 9 days for a 4-city tour for work.
Monday's the 4th, so that would give him 10 days.
And he already has provided with
So Susie, you're saying you can get it in?
I'm gonna do my best. I literally hop on a plane 6 a.m. Friday morning, and I'm in 4 cities in the next 9 days. And so I'm gonna do my best to pull it together. I will, I know it's very important.
if we have, December 5th is the deadline,
Yeah, exactly.
then we have, excuse me? And then we have, that gives them,
You get the answers back on the 13th, so we could review them prior to.
I would say the 12th. I mean, there's,
Oh, that's what we could get.
because he's already done preliminary information about why the property would have recommended.
That we would do the abatements on the 14th.
On those first 5.
If you're satisfied that you have answers to your questions. But like I said, you don't have to feel like you have to act on those.
Okay.
and I apologize for you guys that your abatements are being held up. I'm trying to go about it the right way, and I don't understand why it's not being addressed that way.
Okay,
assessors send any assessing questions to Christine by 12/5 for her to have addressed by Parker Associates, and that we shoot for the date of 12/12 as his responses.